There have been murmurings about changes in Freemasonry around the world, and these murmurings are indicating that because of all of the changes globally, politically, economically, and spiritually, Freemasons are considering a massive move into the future. So what is going on? Do we have any idea? And where do we start this discovery? When I did my research, I discovered it isn't just the Freemasons who are facing change, but the Knights of Malta too. And the Knights of Malta are one of the oldest organizations dating back to 1033 AD. They were even involved in the Crusades. And even they are changing. What is going on? The plot has thickened when recently in 2017, Pope Francis had summoned the head of the Knights of Malta to Vatican City. No one's particularly sure what happened in this meeting, but as you can see here, hand symbols are in play. The Pope asked Festing, who is the leader of the Knights of Malta, to resign. Now this is unprecedented in Catholic history, and it comes with massive ramifications, and it also exemplifies an ongoing internal struggle happening in the Vatican. Pope Francis, he's been clearing out the old guard and making way for new people. And what people are wondering is what on earth this means within the Catholic Church, and in a greater sense, what does this mean for the secret war of the secret societies? So what's going on here? And the revolution continues, because according to some sources, such as this article in the Catholic Herald, that the actions taken against the Order of Malta due to in-house fighting between powerful forces has left the Vatican open to being considered a non-sovereign entity under international law. According to this article, it says, it now has no legal defense should another sovereign body, say the government of the Italian Republic, choose to view the independence of the Holy See in a similarly anachronistic formality. So in other words, the challenge to the Knights of Malta has become a discussion about the sovereignty of Vatican City. Yet have you heard about this in mainstream media? Because the Vatican holds a tremendous seat of power in the world. Everyone knows that the Vatican is one of the most powerful organizations in the world. It doesn't pay taxes, it remains sovereign, it has one of the most coveted libraries in the world that people are absolutely itching to get into and to read their secret documents. They have scientific centers and observatories. They've even recently talked about alien life and extraterrestrials. Yet when it comes to their financial holdings and their financial matters, things remain very secretive. So who is Pope Francis? This newly elected Pope has been mending fences with other Christians and other religions. He's been making changes on moral matters, and he's influenced the Church in a whole new direction. Is he an agent for positivity, or is he subversive? Secret societies are kind of like network warfare. It's hard to know where the head is and where the tail is. And when it comes to these major secret societies, such as the Knights of Malta, who are connected to the Vatican and the Queen of England, versus the Freemasons, who are tied to the Knights Templar, the United States, and the Illuminati, it's very difficult to find where one begins and the other ends. What we do know is they're tied to politics, religion, and economics around the world, and it's rumored that there is a secret war reigniting between these factions. Despite whatever war's going on between these secret factions and secret societies, I still always want to get behind the scenes and better understand what's going on behind closed doors. And I stumbled upon a YouTube video where the YouTuber is reading a book. It's a first-hand account of what happens during a 33rd degree ceremony and initiation. And this person described in detail who was at his initiation and the impact that this ceremony had on him. Now you might notice a little skip in the video. Don't worry about it, you guys. I'll leave a link to the video. You can actually see the YouTuber's name in this, and you can go check it out if you've got the time. You can watch the whole thing.
Hey folks, this is KJ from the Scariest Movie Ever channel on YouTube. And I have a video here that to me is very important, and it covers a subject I've covered in other videos as well. There's some extremely prominent men there that day, including a Scandinavian king, 2 former presidents of the United States, an internationally prominent evangelist, 2 other internationally prominent clergymen, and a very high official of the federal government, the one who actually presented me with the 33rd degree certificate. Some made only brief appearances, others stayed much longer. However, they didn't do much mixing or socializing with us except for those whom they'd already known. Even though these celebrities weren't extremely brotherly, it was still quite an experience for me just to be associated with them. It was easily the largest gathering of such prominent and influential men of which I've ever been a part of.
Wow, this video really does open my eyes, and I have to say, hearing a little bit about a 33rd level initiation into Freemasonry was very eye-opening. Is the Scottish Rite so powerful that the same people who would attend an inauguration of a United States president are also attending the ceremony behind closed doors in a Scottish Rite temple for a 33rd degree initiate? That seems like an excessive amount of people of power to attend such a small ceremony. But what do you guys think? And furthermore, do you guys still believe that Freemasonry has that power? I mean, since that story was published, a lot has changed in the world in regards to artificial intelligence, space travel, a shift in secret societies, and I've heard rumors from various sources that the power behind Freemasonry has grown into a new secret order. Now, it is very difficult to verify this information, so if you are out there and you've got some information as to what's going on behind the scenes in these secret societies, let us know at Shed Show Talk, and we can make you an anonymous source, but let's have the conversation, because ultimately we all want to know what's really going on behind the scenes. Next up, we're going to take a look at the royal family and possible succession and what that could mean for the secret society battle for power. Everyone around the world recognizes that the Queen's succession is imminent, and it isn't just because she canceled a series of public appearances, and it isn't just because she's had her son and her grandson do more public appearances. There's more going on behind the scenes, and I'll get to that in just a moment. But did you know that it is not the Queen who chooses her successor, but instead it's the UK Parliament who chooses her successor? So once I realized this, I started doing some digging. And what I've learned is that Prince Charles is much less popular with Parliament, and part of that is something called the Black Letters, wherein he would write scathing reports towards Parliament. So he's had a much more acrimonious relationship with Parliament itself. But it's not just that. Prince William carries the Spencer bloodline. And if you know much about the history of the United Kingdom families, the Spencers are actually more royal, or considered to have more royal blood, than the House of Windsor itself. So there's a lot more at play going on behind the scenes, and if you're a royalist, or perhaps you have detailed information about this, let us know. But I want to take a little segue back into Freemasonry and Knights of Malta. As you can tell, the Queen is wearing the Knights of Malta cross. She isn't overtly wearing any Freemasonry symbols. The primary reason for that is because she's female. Her father was one of the highest ranking Freemasons, as are several members of her family, but as a female she is not able to carry that role herself. Instead, she has her cousin Prince Edward, who is the longest standing leader of the lodge anywhere in the world. He's been in power since the 1960s. Prince Edward carries out many ceremonial roles on behalf of the Queen, and he's done so for years. So it's quite possible that the only reason the Queen of England is not a Freemason, it might be as simple as her gender. When we think of the royal family, a lot of people want to think that they're just ceremonial, but the Queen herself has dealt with more politicians than any other living politician on the planet or in history. She is in more circles of influence and power than any other living person. She knows more dirt and she knows more goodness on each of the leaders than anyone else. And thus she is in a unique position of being an influencer far beyond what most diplomats could ever be capable of. But as you look at this succession line on your screen right now, you might notice that she has Prince Charles on the left, followed by Princess Anne, then Prince Andrew and Prince Edward. What you'll notice interesting about Prince Andrew is he doesn't look like his siblings, and it is largely believed today that he is an actual out-of-wedlock son with somebody in the Rothschilds family. And I want to get back to that in a moment, but if you look at the individual wealth of each of her children, you'll notice that Prince Andrew has one of the highest rates of wealth out of all of his siblings. But do your own research and let us know what you guys think is really going on. Because think about the royal family, we have to continue to think about the Rothschilds and international banking. And here's a photo that came out not that long ago, and you'll notice Sir Evelyn Rothschild is pointing a finger into the chest of Prince Charles. Now the reason this is significant isn't just the look on Prince Charles' face, it's the fact that no one is allowed to touch someone of royal line. Here you have the head of the Rothschild family, the entire banking network that the Rothschilds own, literally putting a finger on and appearing to push Prince Charles with his finger. And if you read the expressions, it's pretty plain what's happening here, and Prince Charles does not like it. So you might have royalty on one side, but you have the power of economics on the other. The most financial transactions in the world come in and out of London. So even though the London Empire has changed, or the English Empire has changed over the years with colonies returning to independence, that does not mean that the institutions that exist behind the scenes have lost any clout or any power. As we somewhat described earlier, there is a complicated relationship between the Queen herself, the Rothschilds, and powers within the United Kingdom. Parliament holds the power to govern, and the Queen herself is the inspiration, she's the influencer, and she's the monarch over all of it. And this relationship is largely guarded by a set of rules. So what you're actually going to see next is the Queen ask direct questions to the bankers about the regulators, and this is very uncommon to occur in any royal interaction. Typically, the royal interactions are ceremonial and questions are had behind the scenes. So for those who are royal watchers, they will know that this video is extremely unprecedented, but it does give us a tiny window into the interactions between the royal family and the Rothschild bankers.
I suppose in money it's very difficult to foresee. But people have got a bit lax, you know? Complacency.
And then a question about the city's regulator.
Yes, because the financial service, what do they call themselves? The regulator.
Financial Services
Authority. Which was really quite new, wasn't it? Really? But it didn't have any teeth or something.
These are sensitive issues, and while couched largely in question form, the comments may be seen as interference.
If the Queen's comments could potentially be seen as interference, then what on earth is happening in this photo with Sir Evelyn Rothschild poking the chest of Prince Charles himself? And if the faces don't see it all, like, I kind of giggled when I saw this photo, and actually Paul had sent it to me. But when I looked at this, I thought, oh my goodness, if eyes could talk, what would Prince Charles' eyes be saying right now? Because clearly there's a smugness on the right and there's a disdain on the left. Now that's a major photo assumption, and I understand that, but I would love to know your comments. I can't wait to find out what you guys think of this photo. Let us never forget that the powers of banking hold incredible and invisible power in the world. We know that the economy of the world is rapidly changing. There's more millionaires than ever, but the gap between the rich and the poor is greater than ever as well. So what does this mean for the future of power societies and secret societies? And how much longer can people possibly check and balance them? What we do know is that there's a shuffle happening in Freemasonry, and a shuffle is also happening in the Knights of Malta and at the Vatican. These are two major power carriers in the world. We also know that the royal family is facing a massive change of power itself, and there are a lot of implications that will be rolled out over the next 2 years. Who do you think is going to succeed the Queen of England? Do you think it's going to be Prince Charles or Prince William? I'd love to know your answers to that. There are some who even believe that the power structure exceeds the bankers themselves and belongs to entities and beings that have interacted with humanity for millennia, and that these faceless beings only make themselves known to those who are already powerful. If this were true, that would mean all the imagery we're seeing from secret societies is simply a layer upon a layer and a degree upon a degree away from the source of truth. Perhaps these are simply people doing what their moneymakers are telling them to do. Perhaps these people that we believe are so powerful might actually only be pawns in a greater scheme. But I'm going to leave that up to you. I can simply ask the question and see where the question leads us at Shed Show Talk. Is there an all-seeing eye, or is there a source of power that is guiding all of these people and all of these mechanisms to one cumulative goal? And if so, is that power source human? Is it artificial intelligence? Is it otherworldly? Perhaps alien or supernatural? But what would be the guiding force combining all these strings of time, politicians, economics, religions together into one strand and one story. If there is such a power, is it a knowable power? Is it a relatable power? Or is it simply digital? And we're going to take a look at several of these topics on S.P.A.N News for Shed Show Talk. In the meantime, what we know is the world is changing and there's murmurings of quiet and loud revolutions around the world. The Pope himself has indicated that he believes we're in World War III and that there's vast evidence that we're currently in a global conflict. This is on the cusp of one of the longest reigning monarchs changing power in the near future. And what's going to happen then? And how will it shape the United Kingdom, particularly after Brexit? And let's not forget that around the world, even currency itself is changing into something that's quite virtual. Could there be a time where trade itself was not physical at all? Are we literally leading ourselves into a world that is more virtual than real? And if so, is that the master design that's been happening all along? We might not know who is behind the scenes making all these decisions of power, whether it's of this world or another. What we do know is that the power structure is facing a massive change. That's why we want to talk about it at Shed Show Talk. We don't know if there's one all-seeing eye that can see everything that's happening. Some would argue that it's a deity, other people would argue that it's the Illuminati, and others would argue again that it's simply a digital intelligence. So is there a secret power war going on? The evidence would suggest that there is. Now how can we do our part to find out more? Well, let's talk about it at Shed Show Talk. My name is Beth. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Shed Show Talk.